This is chapter 8. It's the final chapter before the epilogue, which is the little piece tagged on to the story at the end. So here we go, chapter 8. The great hall was cleared in readiness for celebration. As miraculously as it had been turned into a laboratory, it now turned into a banquet hall. Lanterns and banners and silk canopies and ribbons were brought in. Tables and chairs were set for a tremendous feast. The royal gold and silver was polished until it shone brighter than ever before. Flowers were gathered, great and exotic dishes were prepared. The Whangdoodle had ordered the greatest party in the history of Whangdoodle Land, and the palace staff intended to see that he got it. The king was beside himself with happiness, and the entire country rejoiced with him. Lindy was concerned about a dress when the subject of a party was first suggested. "I don't have anything to wear," she cried in dismay. "I can't go to a party in these old clothes." The Whangdoodle put her at ease. He commissioned a dress of ambrosia flowers for her, with a band of flutterby silk for her hair. New clothes were fashioned for the professor and the boys, and each was given a handsome cape for the occasion. By sunset, everything was ready, and the excitement in the palace was intense. The Splinter Cat was the first to arrive. He bounded into the great hall with tremendous enthusiasm and seemed genuinely pleased to see Lindy. He had brushed his silky fur until it shone. He wore a diamond bracelet around his tail. The Whifflebird was well enough to join the party, and for most of the evening stayed close to Tom. The Oink came from the kitchens, and for a change he looked quite cheerful. He wore a smart frilly hat which kept falling over his eyes. The Sidewinders wore their dress uniforms with bright red shoes and golden stockings on their 10 legs. The Proc surprised everyone. He arrived at the party looking resplendent in an embroidered frock coat and a silver Tribbley hat, and carrying a long jeweled staff. "You really do look like a prime minister," Ben said. The Proc actually blushed. "Oh, this old thing! I haven't taken it out of the cupboard for at least 200 years. Lindy's flower dress was a triumph. Tom said candidly that she had never smelled so nice. The boys were handsome in their new capes, and the professor looked particularly dashing. The Whangdoodle had presented him with a gold laurel wreath which sat with distinction on his venerable head. He had tucked his new crimson corduroy trousers into his purple socks, and of course he wore the cape and the special ring that the Whangdoodle had given him. By the time every jiffy and fluke had been packed into the hall, the place was filled to capacity. At the appropriate moment, the Proc moved to a velvet-covered platform at the far end of the room, where there were 2 golden chairs. Above them hung a silken canopy and a burnished shield with the words, "Pax amor et lepos in iacando." The Proc banged his staff for attention, and his voice rang through the hall. "Citizens of Whangdoodle Land, honored guests, your attention, please. It is with great pleasure that I present to you His Majesty the King and his lovely Queen." The entire congregation sank to their knees, and there was a sigh of delight as the royal couple entered. The Whangdoodle's antlers were adorned with the royal jewels, and he glittered and sparkled like a Christmas tree. His shy and enchanting bride wore a simple diamond coronet. Everyone cheered. Love and happiness filled the beautiful room. The Proc danced with Lindy. Ben was an instant success with the female jiffies. They thought him most handsome and plied him with sweets, and paid him so much attention that he became quite embarrassed. Lindy was asked to sing, and she happily complied. Her sweet voice pleased everyone, and the Splinter Cat put his head in the punch bowl to keep from howling. The Whangdoodle spent every second with his bride. He was unashamedly in love and very keen to impress her. At one point, his exuberance got the better of him, and he turned every color of the rainbow while dancing cabrioles and banging his new slippers together. Lindy said, "Your Majesty, you're changing color. Is that flang?" Yes, flang, flang, flang," the king yelled at the top of his voice. "It's surprisingly simple this evening. Can't think why." The grand ball continued long into the night. Everyone agreed that there had never been such a party. The doors of the palace were opened, and dancing couples spilled out into the crystal courtyard and waltzed beneath the sparkling starry sky. The professor sat quietly beside the royal couple and watched them proudly. The Whangdoodle moved over to speak with him. "My good friend, my dear, dear professor," he lisped affectionately, "how could I ever thank you for what you have done? You have given me all that my heart desired." "I am glad, Your Majesty. That makes me very happy." Remember that your wife will need a lot of care. She is still fragile and needs to gain strength. Have you decided on a name for her yet? I thought I'd leave the choice to you. Will you do me the honor and think of something pretty? We intend to have a quiet christening in a couple of days. The professor thought about it. I think that I would like the Queen to be named something simple. She is the very essence of what my work is all about, and I am most proud of the achievement. How about Clarity? Splendid. A lovely name. Claire for short. The Whangdoodle turned to his wife and said, My dear, the professor has thought of a perfect name for you. You are to be christened Clarity. The little Whangdoodle looked at the king and murmured, Umbla-dumbla-dum. The Whangdoodle immediately turned crash pink. The professor smiled. What does that word mean, Your Majesty? It is a special term of endearment known to all Whangdoodles. The professor smiled. Sire, there is one very important thing that I would like to discuss with you, and that is the children and the matter of their hats, the scrappy caps. It is imperative that you give them back to me. The Whangdoodle looked uncomfortable. Couldn't we talk about that tomorrow? I'm afraid not. You see, tomorrow we simply must be on our way. Bother. The Whangdoodle fell silent for a moment. He looked up. I don't want you to go, you know. Oh, Your Majesty, we don't want to go either. I know that it will somehow get out that you came to see me. That will be the beginning of the end. Life is so wonderful now. There's more reason than ever for me to protect it. The king looked worried and dispirited. I don't see how I can possibly let you go. But, sire, think of the children and their family. It would be unfair and not at all like you if you refused to allow them to go home. It is important that they continue to live their lives as they were meant to live them. Consider how you would feel if you were separated from your wife and if you were unable to see her again. Oh my goodness. The king turned white. I do see what you mean, but humans aren't to be trusted, are they? Might I suggest that you start learning to trust again, Your Majesty? You used to in the old days. Why would any of us want to spoil life for you? We'd be destroying the very thing we've come to appreciate and love. I shall miss you. The Whangdoodle's eyes grew moist and he blinked several times. We will miss you too. Will you come back and visit? The professor spoke sincerely. You have only to send word. Good. The Whangdoodle beckoned to the Proc, old boy, fetch the hats, the scrappy caps. The professor and the children will be leaving in the morning. Also, have the jolly boat brought up. I want to escort them home. Okay, we will finish that chapter next time.